Once you get called for an interview, you want to make sure that it is a value-driven interview, and I'll tell you what that means. First, let's talk about what you need to do to prepare for that interview. The first and most important thing is research the organization thoroughly. And when I say research, I mean really dig in there. Look at their website, all of the different pages. Go on LinkedIn and look who works for the company. Look who would be on the team that you're working on potentially if you get this job, and look at all the different backgrounds that they have. I've even looked at interests that people have through LinkedIn to start conversation during the interview. So really dig in there. You also want to make sure that you have clarity at this point. And if you don't have exact clarity, you want to fake it. What I mean by that is that when you get into the interview and they ask you the question, tell me about yourself, you want to make sure it sounds like you are specifically focused on the types of roles that they are interviewing you for, and that you know why you're interested in that organization and how it aligns with your goals. Your elevator pitch should be tailored to this specific organization. So your beginning, middle, and end, the end can be tweaked to say, and that is why I feel I'll be a great fit for this position at this company. So just ending that elevator pitch with a powerful statement that shows that you are very interested in their organization. You'll also want to prepare for behavioral questions. Those are the questions that tend to start with, tell me about a time when, and it's difficult if you don't have a couple of times that you can talk about on deck, times where you've had a difficult deadline, times where you had a lot of stress, times where a team member didn't agree with you. All of this should be filed away, and you should think about that. And you specifically want to think about it in STAR format. Situation, task, action, result. And make sure that you share the result out of what happened in that story and how you specifically impacted that story. If they ask you for your salary and it is your first interview with a recruiter, try to put off sharing your salary. Try to get the recruiter to share the salary with you. If the recruiter can share the salary with you, then you'll know the full range as opposed to you already limiting yourself early on. So if they ask you for your salary earlier on in the interview process, some of the things that you can say are, I appreciate you asking me this question, and at this time, I don't know enough about the role to assess what salary would be the best fit. And just keep repeating that back if they ask you. I'm going to share a few tips just to help with general nerves during an interview and to help you sound more polished. The first thing that I'd say is make sure that your answers aren't too lengthy. Try to slow down as you're answering. Have a clear beginning, middle, and end of your answer. And if you find yourself starting to ramble, wrap it up because the person across from you probably has another question that they want to ask. One way that you can wrap it up is by repeating the question back. So those are a few of my strengths. Or that was a time when I dealt with a person that I didn't agree with. And just repeating it back to summarize it and close it. Another thing that you can do is if you are on Zoom or even if you're in person, you can slowly and quietly tap your foot under the table just to help you slow down and keep time with your answer so you don't gradually speed up as you're talking. You could do that with your hand on your knee under the table, just to help remember, slow down. If you're unsure about the question that was asked to you, don't feel like you have to just jump right in and fumble at the answer. Ask a question back, clarify it. That shows great critical thinking skills. So you could say, I want to make sure I answer this question correctly. Did you mean X, Y, and Z? Or if you are kind of unsure of the type of answer that they want, you could say, I think I have two types of answers that might go with your question that you asked. I have a time when this happened and a time when this happened. Which would you like to hear about? Put it back on the interviewer so that they are making sure that they get the information that they need. It's not your responsibility to mind read and figure everything out that they're looking for. Watch your emotions in the interview. And ahead of time, you might want to think about what might trigger you or elicit more emotion internally. For example, if they ask you about leaving a job and you were fired, you want to be aware of how you want to cope with those emotions in the moment. So think ahead of time what might bring up some emotion and just monitor it as you're talking. It's mindfulness, right? If you start to get frustrated during an interview, that is going to come across. If you're really angry about something that happened at a past job, you want to make sure to regulate that, because that could come across as unregulated frustration, and recruiters want to hire people that are easy to work with and easy to get along with. So you want to be aware of your presentation in the interview and how you come across. This course is all about finding the job that is the right fit for you. And one of the most important things in the interview is asking questions at the end or throughout the interview if it feels like conversational in that way. And so you want to make sure to have your value-driven interview questions ready. Kind of like back when you were doing informational interviews, you want to have a catalog kind of going, a list going in your mind of all of your values in the workplace. And as they're talking and explaining the role to you, you can kind of check off in your mind, okay, this job meets autonomy. Okay, it meets flexibility. And if they don't mention a specific value or you feel uncertain about a specific value, you can ask a question that relates to that value at the end. So say that you want to make sure that you have some creative authority within the role that you are interviewing for. You could ask a question at the end if you feel like that wasn't answered in the interview. I'm curious to know how much creative autonomy or strategy is involved in this position, and if you could give me some specific examples. I always ask for specific examples, and I'm careful not to ask yes or no questions when I'm posing an interview question to the interviewer, because I want to make sure that I get a thorough response. If the nerves are really setting in, do a grounding exercise before the interview. Think about putting a cold cloth on the back of your neck, running your wrists under cold water, doing some deep breathing, checking in to notice if any muscles are tense, and slowly tensing and relaxing each muscle. Those are some things that can help make you feel more grounded in the interview, more regulated, and talk slower so that you're not rushing through your interview questions. After the interview, you want to make sure to send a very specific thank you email. I've seen candidates get selected based off of their thank you emails alone. The thank you email that you send should be to each person that interviewed you. If possible, send it individually and tailor your message to each individual person. If that's not possible, send it to the recruiter and ask the recruiter to send out these thank you messages. Your thank you message should include things that you appreciated learning from each person that you talked to, and reasons why you feel like the job would be interesting, that you really like that job or that company, based on things that those people said. And you can kind of include the things that you've heard overall too. So just make sure that it's not a generic message and it's really thanking that individual and it comes across really authentically. And you should send it within 24 hours. Since this course is more clarity focused and mindset focused, I didn't answer how to attack every single interview question, but I did include some resources below so that you can spend some more time prepping for your interview. And if you feel like you really need a mock interview, feel free to reach out or collaborate with someone in the group.